Well, hello YouTube. Here we go again with another fix-it video. If you're wondering why you're staring into a corner of a room, well, there's a perfectly good reason for that. Well, we have ourselves a bit of a fix-it repair video on our outside exterior door. So, if you open the door here, you'll see there's a really nasty crack running all the way down the whole striker area of the door. Now, similar damage to this can occur if the door has been kicked in or forcibly entered or so. In this case, it's just from wear and tear on the door and kind of rough and misuse of the door itself. I have a bit of a redneck plan to fix it, which requires a bit of tinkering, bit of drilling, and a little bit of gluing, and it should last for a little while longer. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is probably end up marking where the weather stripping here rests against the door, which will probably somewhere in here. Okay guys, so here we go. We have ourselves a job ahead of us. This job here kind of requires us fixing our exterior door. To fix this here exterior door, we require these tools that you see in front of us. We have ourselves a tape measure, a pencil, 11mm flat wrench, of course, a hammer. We have ourselves a pilot hole drill bit to drill a pilot hole. Have ourselves a 1/4" drill bit to drill the final hole. Have ourselves 4 acorn nuts or cap nuts, depends on how you call them, and 4 2-inch, 1/4" carriage head bolts. And a tube of adhesive. You can use white glue, you can use PL Premium, you can use any type of adhesive that bonds to wood and will do the job you want. A Phillips screwdriver on the far left of your screen, as well as a pair of pliers. The pair of pliers, I don't really foresee needing them to fix the door, but it's to remove the nail out of the end of the tube of adhesive. And of course, last but not least, don't forget the drill driver set here to drill a hole in your doors. Well, why do I want to drill a hole in my door? Well, let me take you back over and I'll show you why. Okay guys, so over here of course we have our wonderful exterior door. She looks, well used but perfectly normal from the one side here. Well, upon opening the door here, you notice you have yourselves a really good sized crack that basically is starting to grow, and it'll continue to go all the way up the door to the point where it makes the door fully unusable. So what I would like to do is basically squirt some adhesive in there, and if you look here you can squeeze the door back together and it'll get some semi-function, semi-use back out of the door for a little while longer. And by squeezing it back together, you'll get a little bit more life out of said door. So first thing I need to do is mark where the weather stripping lands on the door itself, so I know where to put my screws. So for that we got to venture outside into the great unknown, the great big cold, to mark our little line on the door. So of course, without locking yourself out, take your pencil, and you could use a pen, you could use a marker, you could use pretty much anything if you want to, and just run her down and kind of the edge of the weather stripping over the dents and scrapes and all that good stuff, and then you'll know where to drill your holes for the screws. So now we got our holes drilled, we can go back inside. Okay, so I guess you could say step 1A of this here process is to remove the doorknob. Because we're going to be drilling and then shooting adhesive in there, I'd recommend removing the doorknob, because you don't want to be gluing it in, because eventually if you go to change it, if it's glued in, then you could have an issue with, well, changing it, right? So of course, for those of you who have never changed a doorknob before, go back and review my doorknob change video. I will put the link in the description. For those of you who have, well, here's a bit of a refresher course to refresh your memory. So once you got your doorknob out, both halves, inside and outer, normally there are 2 screws in that striker to remove. However, due to the fact it's cracked, the screws have fallen out. I do have the screws to put back in once it's fixed and glued. So at this point you can basically just grab and pull, get it out. So the whole concept of this here project is to you know, squeeze this back in nice and tight, so she's a little bit tighter, the doorknob's not loose in there, and it is good to go. So pretty much the next step here is to inspect your crack to see if there's any debris in there, broken wood or anything blocking it from squeezing reasonably tight back together. And at this point we look like we're good, so we can now drill them holes in there, mark out where we want them, drill your holes, and then we're good to go. So all in all, guys, the whole gap of the crack is about 12 inches long. Now unfortunately I can't put a couple of bolts in right exactly where I wanted them, so I ended up putting one at the 3-inch mark, one at the 7.5-inch mark, and one at the 12-inch mark. So therefore it'll hold, it'll be good, and it shouldn't spread much further, especially with the adhesive in there on top of the strength of the bolt. So now come the step where we end up doing our drill-ins. So being that you're going to end up drilling into one side of the door and through the other, you want to make sure there's nothing behind the door, like coats, scarves, anything hangy that can get tangled up in your drill bit and break it or cause you injury. And of course you want to put a blocking behind the door, whether you use an old boot or a chunk of wood, just to keep your drill bit from damaging the wall or so behind it. So of course we got the drill all fired up here, and we're ready to go. So I've already took the liberty of marking out where I want the bolts. Of course, one there, and then one out of the camera frame. So what I'll do is I'll drill these holes, and then we're good to go. Okay, so now we have the pilot holes drilled, again there, and there. Now we can drill it out to the full diameter of our bolt that's going through. Okay, so now you got your holes and that all drilled. You're bound to have knocked you know, drillings now into the crack that's going to affect your glue-ins. So you can use an air compressor, you can use a screwdriver, whatever you want to do to get in there to get the shavings out. I'm going to use a can of compressed air for like your computer switches and stuff. Just blow it on in and get her on out. Okay guys, so if you're wondering what the pry bar is for, we had ourselves a bit of a failure in one of our equipment. It turns out my tube of adhesive that I was using was actually hardened from, well, sitting. It seems to be one of the downsides. Even though I had the end plugged, it still seemed to have hardened. So what I ended up doing was cutting open the tube and getting out the adhesive the old-fashioned way. So now of course the pry bar is in the crack there to make it slightly wider for me to use a putty knife to basically apply it. So take a little bit on your putty knife and pretty much just kind of squeeze it on into the hole. It's going to be a little bit messy, but it's kind of the way she is. Now of course this method is going to result in some backflow, where as soon as you take the pressure off and tighten her up, she's going to want to squish out. But you probably would have ended up with a little bit of stuff squishing out anyway. So once you got the adhesive in there and wiped off any of the excess, it's time to put the bolts in. Now you may need to use a little bit of persuasion to get these bolts in, or they might just slide right in. For that, of course, you need the hammer. So once you've got the bolts in, if you see it's got a little more excess that have came out, just give her a wipe off, and then you're good to go there. Okay, so if you've measured correctly, your 2-inch bolt should just barely be long enough by probably 2 or 3 threads to get the acorn nut started. And then once you've got the acorn nut started, you can take your 11mm flat wrench, impact driver with a socket adapter, whatever's, and you know, get those all in there. So we'll start the old tightening down process, of course. Sucking the carriage bolts into the door, tightening everything up. The adhesive will start to squirt out a little bit, which is normal as everything, well, contracts or, you know, shrinks back to where she should be. Now, of course, as you see here, more of the adhesive have leaked back out. So we do have some in there, not as much as I'd like there to be, but there is some. But that's the way she's going to have to be for now anyway. Inspect your carriage head bolt, make sure they're flush with the door, not you know, too deep in or anything. Have a check at your, have a look at your cap nuts or acorn nuts on the back, make sure they're good. Give them a final tighten, make sure everything's to where you like her to be. And then you're good to go. Give this a wipe down again, let her all dry, and we'll put her all back together. So guys, here we go. Once the adhesive's all dry and all that, you can reassemble her. Again, I took the liberty of doing it off camera because, well, this is the same basic install or reassembly as the installation video. Again, refer to the link in the description if you're unsure. But I put the striker back in, got the screws back in, got the doorknob all installed and working. You may need to adjust the latch if it's been run loose for any amount of time. And now comes the moment of truth. So she shuts like a new door. It's nice and tight. So, you know, it's not going to leak any air or, you know, any other issues like that. She opens like a new door. She shuts like a new door, and she's good to go. So I guess that's been kind of, by no means is this comprehensive advice. This is just how I did it, how I kind of did this job, did this little bit of a project here to extend the life of the door. Eventually the door will have to be replaced. You know, it's just basic common sense not to live with a door that's damaged. But eventually I will change it out. But for now, this will get me through the great big deep freeze of winter, and we will change her someday soon. So as always, thanks for watching Maxwell's World. Comment, subscribe, and enjoy.